Hello everyone, and welcome to From the Ashes. My name is Trevor Barroero, and tonight's solo percussion recital will be divided into three distinct sections as I reflect upon the inconveniences, the tragedies, and the opportunities of which the past year has presented. I'd like to start by taking a moment to thank each of the composers with whom I collaborated to create tonight's program. I helped commission 9 out of the 10 works that you will hear this evening, and all 10 of the pieces were actually composed within the past 2 years. Now, our concert begins with the inconveniences created by the global pandemic. These pieces helped me reflect upon the trivial frustrations I had at the onset of the COVID-19 shutdown. One of those inconveniences for many percussionists around the world was suddenly a lack of access to our instruments. So the last 3 pieces you'll hear on this section of the program address that access to instruments. You'll hear the world premiere of 3 new mini works for solo percussion by Yaz Lancaster, Thuong Tran, and Joe Moore III, of which I helped commission through the New Works project and then Black Swamp Percussion as well. And I've used these pieces tonight to address the fact that suddenly in 2020 I didn't have access to my instruments at the university. So everything was downsized. I had to find new, smaller setups on which to practice and compose. So these small mini works help reflect that idea. And I should mention that all 3 of these works were composed for a unique combination using a tambourine and then stone, wood, and resonant metal percussion instruments. But the first piece you'll hear on this program was actually written by Viet Cuong in 2019 for the Modern Snare Drum Competition, and it's a unique composition for solo snare drum. And although Viet did not compose this piece during the COVID-19 era, I personally first heard the piece performed by Jeff Stern on YouTube during 2020, during the shutdown, and was reflecting upon the initial panic in March of 2020 when I realized my hair was way too long and all the barber shops and hairstyling places were shut down. Clippers and grooming tools were all sold out online and in stores. So my fiance Holly and I had to learn how to cut my hair from home. Eventually we got access to clippers and scissors. And this piece really is just a funny take on what that process has looked like for this past year. So here's Well-Groomed by Viet Cuong, and it will be followed by the 3 mini works. I hope you enjoy. The second section of tonight's event addresses the tragedies of 2020 into 2021. Isolation, first of all, caused by the pandemic, contributed to serious mental health concerns for many individuals around the globe. Alicia Jane Turner addresses this in her newest work for solo marimba and electronics entitled Splinter. After that, you'll hear a piece of which I commissioned from Floyd for solo timpani and electronics entitled A Guide to Cardiac Care. And I've personally used this piece to reflect upon the burden placed on our frontline healthcare workers in their response to COVID-19. And I also related this piece deeply and personally due to my own family struggles with heart-related incidents and the loss of my father. Within the stillness created by the global shutdown, more eyes were fixated to social media and more people than ever were forced to witness the ongoing murder of young Black men and women in this country. Timothy Adams addresses this in his newest work for solo percussion and electronics, Where Do We Go From Here? The World is Watching. I've invited all three of these composers to join us here tonight to speak about their compositions, so I'll let them take it away to discuss their pieces further.
Hi, my name's Alicia Jane Turner, and I am the composer of the piece Splinter, which you are hearing today. I wanted to write a piece that felt very raw and honest and vulnerable about mental health. And so it's looking at my experiences of bipolar disorder, and more specifically looking at episodes, and the way that you navigate your way through them and eventually out of them. And so the idea was that you have this audio track underneath it that's quite blurry and it's quite stuttering and sporadic and has my voice in it as well. And then the voice of the marimba is what it's navigating its way through and eventually out. I really wanted it to look at the physical side of mental health as well, and the viscerality of it and the relationship between the physical and the mental. It's quite a challenging piece to perform. And the idea behind that was to reflect the physical and mental challenges, and sometimes the disconnect, but ultimately finding connection in there as well. It's been an interesting piece looking back on it in relation to the past year. I delivered it in January 2020, and then we all know what happened a couple of months later. And so it was interesting looking back on it because I wrote this piece as quite an individual look at mental health. And then over the past year, we've all experienced this collective anxiety and this collective experience. It's been so challenging for so many people and very challenging for people who have mental health conditions. The aim of the piece as well is that when you come to the end of it, it feels cathartic, it feels grounding, and it's about that reconnection between body and mind. And so I hope it ultimately feels like a healing and calming experience as well by the time you get to the end of it.
It's just trying to take the edge off. Watch something. I'm not really sure why it's take the edge off. It's just watch something. Trying to achieve something. Watch something. Achieve something. It's just trying to. It's just watch something. It's just achieve something. It's just take this. Just take this. Just this. Just this. Just. In for 5. Hold for 5. Out for 5. In for 5. Hold for 5. Out for 5. In for 5. Hold for 5. Out for 5. In for 5. Hold for 5. Out for 5. In for 5. Hold for 5. Out for 5.
Hello, my name is Floyd, and I am the composer of A Guide to Cardiac Care. This piece stemmed from a myriad of ideas and influences. As Trevor and I were talking through them, we started realizing how many people we know who have had heart issues. It also made me think about how medical students, like my partner Chris, have to balance complex information with patient care. We all contextualize the heart in two ways, as a part of our body and as a part of our being, the intangible aspect. You forget about it until you're nervous, pushing yourself through a workout, grieving a loss, or feeling excited about seeing someone you love after a long time apart. Yet, it's that muscle that keeps going no matter how cognizant we are of it. Thank you to Trevor for performing the world premiere of this piece.
The heart. At the center of the body, it controls blood flow. Each heart unique, irregularities may occur. To begin, listen to a normal sinus rhythm. As a physician, you must remember that when dealing with a heart, you're caring for a human life. Never forget the lived experiences behind the organ.
The final portion of our program addresses the questions facing our world today, and the very same one proposed by Tim Adams in the last piece. Where do we go from here? Opportunities is a tricky word because it suggests that there's this inherent positivity to be found in the past year, but I do believe that there is a chance for growth from these learned experiences, and most importantly, a chance to make actionable change in this country for the betterment of humanity. So first I'll let Wesley Sumpter and Timothy Adams speak about their compositions themselves, but I wanted to take a second to address the last piece on the program, We Lay Down Our Arms. This piece contains the spoken words written and performed by Amanda Gorman at the 2021 presidential inauguration, and it was arranged for solo percussion and electronics by my dear friend Nicole Patrick. I hope you will all listen to and reflect upon the words that Gorman presents to us and ask the ways in which we can all take a stand in this new call to action. I also want to quickly thank all of you for joining into tonight's event. It was such a pleasure to put together this unique program, and I'm so glad that despite the inability to host this event with an in-person audience, that you all were still able to experience the world premieres of many of these new pieces. I want to thank all the composers on tonight's program for their vulnerability, creativity, and willingness to contribute new works to this project. It's such a joy to be able to highlight the works of such wonderful individuals. And of course, I'd like to thank my fiance, Holly Durr, for her tireless work in assisting me with some of the filming for tonight's videos. I should also mention that the global pandemic has allowed me the space and time to develop many of the audio and video skills which have represented themselves here tonight in the production of these performances. And of course, I'd like to thank my mentors, Mr. Timothy K. Adams Jr., Ms. Kimberly Toscano Adams, Dr. Cynthia Johnston Turner, and Dr. David Haas for their work in guiding me through this doctoral degree, for serving on my evaluation and advisory committees, and for their just mentorship and guidance over these past few years. I need to especially just thank Mr. Adams and Ms. Toscano for their personal training, not only in my percussion skills, but also just in life. And I appreciate all that they've done to mentor me and uplift me and support me in this past decade. So Here we go. This is the last portion of our program, Opportunities, and we'll start by allowing Wesley Sumpter to speak about his newest composition.
Looking forward, where do we go from here? Composed to honor the lives of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd. And the soundscape is a combination of different thoughts that I have. There are three distinct sounds that are connected to Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd. There are sounds that shows their spirits trying to find the door where they're going for their afterlife. There are sounds that represent the lives of black people that have been lost since 1619. And then there's a bit of sound there that is just of hope. And what I did was I wrote a larger piece called 846 for 16 players. And I had Trevor extract one of the principal cajon parts, and then let him be creative in terms of instruments that he chose. And Trevor's the storyteller. And then the sounds that you hear are the different people in their lives, and Trevor has an opportunity to express his feelings in terms of what they may have felt as they're going through their last hours here on Earth. It was great. It's an honor to write it for Trevor. And again, I hope you enjoy it. And let's make a difference in this world. Resting peacefully, having dreams of today and for my future. All of a sudden, I woke up to loud sounds, yelling, stopping, running. Then all of a sudden, I hear a loud sound. wanted to take a run, to clear my mind, to think about the future, to consider happy times. But why did my life have to end? Why? What would make a human being put their knee on another human being's neck? We must spread love, not hate. We must spread love, not hate. We must spread love, not hate.
My name is Wesley Sumpter, and today you're going to hear a piece entitled Meditations of the Heart. My idea behind this piece was to allow the performer to use a set of improvisations to allow themselves to convey their emotions, their anger, their fear, their joy, their pain, their struggle about the events of the past year and a half with another set of improvisations played by myself. On this audio playback that you'll hear with the drum set, you'll hear me doing one-take improvisations layered over multiple instruments: the vibraphone, tam-tam, a drum, glass wind chimes, shaker, claves, and other things. I've also taken the liberty to add my own voice to give it a very prayer-like meditative quality. And what this does is it surrounds the performer in what I like to call a sound bath. For those of you that don't know, sound baths are used in meditation and yoga practice a lot of the times. And what I enjoy about it is you don't necessarily separate yourself from the sound bath. You essentially internalize it. You essentially become one with it. And I like that idea because we may be dealing with our emotions, we may be dealing with our feelings, but we may not be dealing with them in the sense of, okay, I want to communicate with that. I want to understand what type of Wesley that is versus the type of Wesley that is hearing it and trying to play along with it. So Trevor has done an amazing job on it, and I wrote the piece to allow him to be able to express whatever things he may have been going through over the past year and a half. And it's my hope that you all enjoy it and it all does something for you in a positive light. So here is Meditations of the Heart.
I wrote Ode to Breonna as a memorial for her death. Originally I wrote it for piano, and I made an arrangement for strings, and then lineage, then an arrangement for trio. Trevor has done this really beautiful arrangement for solo percussion. I wrote it because in our country's history, and black women's lives have been taken. They're typically forgotten, actually women in general. And I decided I wanted to write something that could potentially keep her legacy alive. The thought is, this is what she must have been thinking in transition. And I would assume going to heaven. And I don't know what that's like. I'm not in any hurry to find out. but I thought if I could write something that could potentially show her feelings, one of surprise and just kind of horror, the suddenness. And this is what came out. I hope you enjoy it.
We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew. That even as we hurt, we hoped. That even as we tired, we tried. That we'll forever be tied together, victorious. Not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division.